Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Super-Fanta-Fi. This being a show, we're talking about TV shows of the supernatural, fantasy, and or science fictional genre. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of Roswell, New Mexico. A lot of interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. It's kind of interesting, first and foremost, that little shockwave that Max did at the end of the previous episode, which knocked out all the power in Roswell. Turns out that actually got rid of what was ever in him, like whatever it is that he got from Liz when he resurrected her. Like maybe, like I said, maybe it's just because like the unnatural order of crossing that line, it filled him with some anger or something. Maybe he absorbed a little something from Liz that she's buried deep down inside, and just like whatever, like I don't know. It's hard to say. Like we still don't know what that was. Maybe it's just something specifically that happens to Max from his abilities. Nevertheless, it turns into a whole complicated situation because it's like, how do we deal with this Liz thing? You know, Isabella's saying like, well, we'll have to, you know, mess with Liz's mind. And initially, you know, Max, even though he's hesitant about it, he feels like it is the best way to he's even asking, like, will she forget about me? And it's like, no, but she will forget about how she feels about you. But for Max, it's like, it doesn't matter. He can't let her find out the truth because it's like, she thinks I'm the killer, and it's like it's better she thinks that because it'd be a lot worse if she ends up finding out the truth. So, but the thing is, Isabel already tried to get inside of Liz's mom, which she completely ignores that fact from Max, doesn't tell Max that, and even Michael's like, what are you going to do about it? She's like, I'm going to practice. So it's interesting, because that is the thing, like, I'm wondering, like, I thought it was specifically just because of the whole Rosa thing, but I guess it's a combination of just because Liz's mind is kind of like, her psyche is just hard to crack. Or maybe it might just be the fact is that Isabel isn't very good at it because she hasn't done it in such a long time. They've been, you know, living such a life of like, because she hasn't practiced it enough, the ability isn't at its strongest. Maybe in the past it could have been because they made it seem like she's done it before, but she doesn't like doing it. So it seems like in that time frame she hasn't done it at all. So doing it against Liz was the first time, so it was a little too overwhelming. But I think it's also because of potentially what she saw, like the whole Rosa situation, also finding out how Liz really feels about Max. I kind of completely misinterpreted that last episode. I mean, all her raw emotions about Max, like, is kind of her big focus, but I guess, you know, because of Isabel's ability, she could tell the difference between what was just hate and what was love. And it's like, she could tell that Liz loves Max. Like, I thought it was like, oh, like, she was just basing that on, like, her strong emotions. But it's like, no, like, she could feel the love emotion. Above everything else, above her suspicions for Max and stuff like that, rests the love. And, like, her power allowed her to kind of peel back that. So it turns out, you know, we end up finding out Maria actually hates Isabel. And it's like, why is that? Well, it's because Rosa didn't like her, and the reason why Rosa didn't like her, we don't know, because even, you know, Isabel is trying to figure out like what went wrong, why is that? Because the thing is, because Maria kind of blames Isabel subconsciously, because it's like, because you showed up, Rosa decided to leave, and that was the night she ended up dying. So it's like, if it wasn't for you showing up, if she didn't feel the way she felt about you, like, she would have stayed there and maybe everything would have been all right. It's interesting because, you know, because I didn't know how to interpret that. Like, there was a whole thing last time, too, about Rosa being like, oh, we were friends, weren't we? And it's like, okay, so I was wondering if that was supposed to be representative of, like, because I was thinking maybe it's like, maybe they were more than friends, potentially. Because I'd also thought about, like, maybe Isabel had told her the truth. You know, it's like what they are, and, like, maybe that's why Isabel's even more reluctant to let Max tell someone, because it's like they made that mistake before, and really she did, and she wasn't willing to let that happen again. I don't know, like, what went down between her and Rosa that kind of led to that, because there's a lot of interesting things, like, we end up sadly finding out about in this episode. The thing is, Maines made a reference to something, and that pissed off Sheriff Valenti, being like, oh, like, we know about your husband in his later days, kind of like saying some, like, poking at something that pissed Valenti off, and now in retrospect it's like, maybe it's the secret that Liz ended up finding out about, because basically there was that book bag she got from, was it Federico? Interesting enough, it's the actor who played Gabriel on the TV show Bull, you know, this season, so I thought that was kind of interesting. But he was the one that, you know, kind of one of those bad people that Rosa got caught up in drugs and all that with, but he got clean. But obviously their dad still harbors a lot of hard feeling towards him, because it's like everything that happened terribly in Rosa's life, you know, he probably, you know, he needs someone to blame, and he's directly involved in, you know, many different regards. So that's why I think in that front. But they end up finding out that the note that was left for Rosa was from Kyle's dad. He was having an affair with Rosa. So Kyle initially was kind of like, no, there's no way my dad would do that. But then, Liz was like, you know what, no, never mind, you're probably right. But he's like, no, why are you trying to make me feel better by trying to be like, oh, you probably got this wrong? It's like, you don't believe that. So why are you trying to make me feel better? Because it's like, for her, it's like, I know what it's like when your heroes fall. And the fact of the matter is, your dad was so an influential hero to you. He was so important to you. I don't want to kind of stain that memory. And now that also puts it in his head, like, that's why his mom said multiple things. One, she was like, don't look into your dad's past. And also the fact is of like, yeah, I want you to remember him this way, not who he was towards the end. Maybe because the illness that he was going through, he ended up confessing a lot of stuff that he did. So that's probably what she might have learned about. And that might have been something that, Maines ended up finding out, or maybe he knew the entire time. Or maybe Kyle's mom knew the entire time. I don't know. It might be something she only found out at his deathbed. But either way, it's like, that's interesting. Because Rosa had this whole thing at the beginning where it's kind of like, forget about love. It was actually kind of a very beautifully poetic. It's sad, but it's got this beautiful poeticness to it of like, that's why God gave us rib cages, like essentially put our heart behind a cage, our rib cages to protect our heart, because it's like love is just letting people get close to you so they can hurt you on purpose and stuff like that. So it's like she was hurt. So it's like, was that in that regard? Is it connected to Isabel? I mean, was it because maybe she did know the truth about Isabel and that put her in a complicated situation with Maines? I mean, do they know how much Maines really know about the aliens and stuff like that? I don't really know if they know that. I mean, which is interesting considering the whole like Alex and Michael situation. But to be fair, it's not like, well, why would Michael, know something like that? Like how much they really know about it. I mean, they've been hiding themselves the entire time just so no one knows, especially with the military base being nearby and stuff like that. But I don't know if they know how much he really knows about aliens and all that. So it's an interesting, complicated situation we kind of find ourselves all around in this series, because it's like Liz is kind of caught between that rough space because she doesn't want to stay in town, but she's so used to running. She's lived in 14 different cities. She's left behind every boyfriend she's ever had, because ever since Rosa died, Rosa was like her best friend, not only her sister but her best friend. And it's like the moment she died, like something inside of Liz broke, and it's like now there's part of her that wants to stay because she basically thinks if she solves this mystery, maybe it'll kind of fill that hole in her heart, and maybe she'll finally feel at home, because Roswell doesn't feel like home, but it's like her dad's here, and especially her dad being in the condition he was this episode, he's better, but still, like, she wants to watch out for him because because for her too, it's like, I'm so caught up in all this other stuff that's going down. I'm not focused on the people who let me down. I should be focused on the one person who never has, that being her dad. And then also there's a whole situation of Kyle the entire time at the hospital because power's out all over the place. And I'm sure that made Max feel even more guilty because a lot of stuff happened. Like even that kid in this episode, him being in the condition he was because the street lights were out and a car accident happened because of Max. And so Kyle's talking about the fact of the matter is, it's like, you became a sheriff because you want to help people. I became a doctor because I want to help people. And the fact of the matter is, standing here feeling useless is the worst thing. And you can tell, like, Max is kind of like squeezing his hands and stuff. And then it turns to the whole thing of like, Kyle's like, are you just going to stand there? Kind of insinuating, like, do something. I thought when Kyle was away, because, like, Max was like, we have no right to play God because the ramifications of what happened the last time he played God. Like, things just went haywire, but it's also his secret he needs to keep, but not just for him, it's also his siblings. But the most frustrating thing is seeing a kid practically about to die, also because of his actions. But it's like, I'm so used to only doing the bare minimum because I'm so scared of, trying to keep our secret. And the fact of the matter is, I don't do the right thing. And it's like, I'm going to do the right thing this time. And he ended up turning the generator back on. Sadly, leaving a mark on the transformer that Cam ended up seeing in photos from Maines. Now, initially, because we ended up finding out that Cam is, she used to be military. So I'm like, okay, like I thought when it was all said and done, like what she saw, like she wouldn't know what to make heads or tails of it. But I thought like, okay, she'll go to Maines about it. But it turns out not necessarily the case. Not unless she subsequently did, and that led to everything. But it seems like basically Maines is kind of like, hey, scratch my back, I'll scratch yours. There's that whole Charlie situation. I'll help with that if you help me out with, giving me stuff from the police. Like, she knows whatever's going on. Potentially Max might be in the center of it, but it does seem like she does care about Max. So once again, she doesn't know everything, but it's probably going to be a situation where things kind of come to light, and it's going to be because of Cam. I keep saying Sam, because of Cam, and they're all going to attribute it to Kyle because, you know, their conversation, Max figures it out and pieces it all together. It's like, you know the truth. And then he even gets pissed at Liz. It's like, you told Kyle the truth about me. Did you tell him about Isabel and Isabel and Michael? And it's like, no, he only knows about you. And so it's like, for her, it's like, I went to him. He can be trusted. He's like, trust it, you know, until both of you decide that I'm a killer and you're going to turn me in then. But for her, it's like, the fact of the matter is, I want to trust you, but the fact of the matter is, I don't know because you've constantly lied to me about Isabel. About Rosa. And the fact of the matter is, it's so interesting because, like, she kind of quotes a little bit about what Rosa said. It's kind of interesting. I don't think Liz was always this way of kind of protecting her heart. Like, getting like science and facts and stuff like that is what she did to kind of defend herself. You know, it's just kind of her defense mechanism after losing Rosa. Like, she in turn had, you know, had her heart broken with Rosa's situation. And so it turns into a whole thing of, I have to protect myself, protect my heart, because she even talks about the fact is that, you know, having her science and facts being her armor. Like, that's something Rosa would have said, like, in the very least, you know, in Liz's own way, in her own manner. And for her, she admits, she's like, I'm terrified, you know, about many different things, and that's all I'm going to give you now, because Max is like, how do you really feel about me? Now, obviously, that makes Max feel like she's scared of him, which there's a part of that. When she says that, you obviously know it's like she's terrified because she does love him too, that she feels the way she does. And it's such a complicated situation of like, she's terrified because she doesn't know the truth. The fact of the matter is, and she feels the way she does about Max. So it complicates things. But he's like, I do want you to know that no matter, like, you do believe me when I told you I love you, right? And she's like, yeah. And he's like, okay, you know, no matter where it leads you next, I want you to always know that. And he's like, goodbye, Liz. She was kind of looking like, wait, what? Because she didn't know. Sadly, Isabel can't, you know, influence Liz's mind just because she doesn't think she's strong enough to do it. And Michael suggests, well, if we can't do it that way, then we'll have to go about it, you know, by giving her the truth. Like, I'm the one that killed those girls all those years ago. So it was Michael the entire time. Because the thing is, because I was like, okay, so maybe it wasn't what Liz thought it was. But even, you know, Max at the beginning was like, yeah, Liz knows that an alien killed her sister. So it's like, we'll just make me the one. Because even Max was like, hey, I'll be the one to sacrifice myself. Because also he's the only one that's been outed amongst the siblings as an alien. But at the same time, it's a complicated thing of like, he's like, no, the fact is that you have your life, you know, your life is good, and, you know, Isabel has Noah, which even that's kind of an interesting thing because of Maria's resentment for her when she was reading her poem. It's like, oh, your husband Noah wants to have a baby, but you don't because you don't want your baby to be a freak. And it's just like, because the man she loves, who loves her deeply, she can't be 100% honest with, and it eats her up. It always has. And it's like, she can't have what he would want, and that's a family with a baby and everything, because it's like, well, if that baby ends up being an alien and everything, so that baby will be different, and that's just a whole complicated thing. The fact that they bring that up kind of makes me go, there might be a situation where that might be beyond Isabel's control. Maybe like an accident will happen or something, you know, with the whole, what contraceptive would be kind of the term they use is like, you know, maybe something will happen and she ends up getting pregnant, and that becomes a whole complicated in itself, but who knows. But what's interesting is the whole reveal that it is Michael that did it. I didn't actually expect it to be actually any of them. So it's like, what went down? Because even Michael was like, we promised not to talk about that day. So like, what exactly went down? Because, you know, Kyle had even suggested, you know, because he had told Liz, like, okay, my dad knew about aliens, so maybe Rosa, you know, got pregnant, maybe she stumbled upon the secret she shouldn't have, and maybe that's what this comes down to. Maybe it's like Rosa saw what Michael was doing, or what he was capable of doing, him being an alien and everything, and it's like, I kind of feel like it wasn't on purpose. Whatever it was, just the way Michael's kind of acted about everything. It seems like the reason why he's kind of like, let's not talk about it and stuff like that is guilt. Because that makes sense, like, even more so why this big secret has been kept. Because it's not just about protecting Michael from what he did. It's also about protecting all of them too, but more so than anything, protecting Michael. It's like, this is our brother. It had to be in an accident, because I feel like they wouldn't support him otherwise. You know what I mean? It's still about keeping their secret, but I feel like it had to be something like But the question is, what was the accident? It's kind of interesting because don't forget, was it Ophicus? What was it? Ophicus? The note that Liz had found from Rosa last episode, is that supposed to be Kyle's dad, or was that someone else? I mean, that one letter in particular and the bus ticket and everything, it's like, well, where was she going? Was she going to go somewhere where they were going to run away together or something? And maybe that's what ultimately led to, because it was supposed to be like the day after she died. So it's like, she said all that stuff about the broken heart and everything. So maybe he broke things off potentially. Maybe because at the time, his wife had found out about it, or maybe Maines had found out about it, or someone was trying to use it against him potentially. So who knows? Maybe next episode we'll finally get the answers to all of this. I mean, the fact of the matter is Michael's willing to sacrifice himself, because for him it's like, I don't really have anything. Like, even though the whole him and Alex situation is kind of like, well, that might be through. That's the whole complicated situation that it is. So the whole thing then becomes like, okay, so he's going to tell Liz the truth because she's not going to stop until she finds out the truth. So why not give her? I mean, I don't know if they'll tell her the entire truth, but at the very least, it's like, I'm the one that was behind everything either way. So maybe, because it said girls, but maybe the other girls died. It was his fault, but maybe it wasn't necessarily Rosa's that he killed. Like, maybe Rosa's situation was something else, but it's like, hey, at the very least, I killed those girls, so I need to be punished for it anyway. Let's just say I'm the one that killed Rosa too, so she'll stop looking potentially. I'm very interested to find out what that's all about. Also, what Kyle ends up finding out about his dad, what secrets his mom's been keeping this entire time, and also, like, what's this whole situation with Cam, who is this Charlie person, and what exactly, information is she going to be leaking to him from, like, the sheriff's office and stuff like that. It's definitely going to be very interesting to see where all this takes us going forward into the next episode. I mean, also, like, there's the whole thing of, like, oh yeah, like, where does Max and Liz stand? Because it's like, he can't do nothing about it now too, and it's like, no matter what happens, that relationship, I mean, especially because for him, it's like, with what his understanding of the current situation is, it's like, there's also Kyle who knows the secret, but there's also, like, the fact is how Liz feels about him. He thinks she looks at him kind of like a monster. Like I said, it's a lot more complicated than that, because she was like, that's the only answer I can give you for now, because, like, I think for her, it's like, if she tells him the truth about how she feels, it'd make things even more complicated for her. It's like, no, I need to focus on solving this mystery above anything else, putting aside my feelings and all that. So, like I said, it's going to be interesting to see what happens next after all of this. But really, that's all I want to talk about today. That's helping me be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and good